That's right, it's me. It's nighttime, and it's our time to be together and to talk to the very best guests, which I don't mind bringing to you. I think it's one of our favorite things to do. Carl Szabo is back. He's the vice president and general counsel for NetChoice. The website is netchoice.org. He's also a professor of internet law at George Mason University Scalia Law School. Carl, thanks for coming back on.
Yeah, glad to be back.
So you have news for us on a data breach at the largest health insurance company in the entire country, United Healthcare?
Yeah, this happened a couple days ago, and if you've been wondering why you can't get your medication or your prescriptions just suddenly aren't showing up when you go to the pharmacy, it's because of a data breach. And the theory is that it was from a foreign adversary who engaged in a hack of a company called United Medical Health. Unfortunately, this is not the first time that our country has been hacked. It's not the first time that our healthcare system has been hacked. In fact, we need only think back a couple of years to the Colonial Pipeline hack, where they basically shut down the entire flow of oil on the eastern seaboard. And these are cyber attacks, by the way. These are essentially terrorist attacks to our cyber community. So that Colonial Pipeline was back in the beginning of the Biden administration, back in 2001. Since then, the number of cyber attacks have only increased and gotten worse. Ransomware is up. And a terrifying statistic, 99% of cyber attacks don't even get prosecuted. That means only 1% of crimes get prosecuted. And, I mean, we shouldn't be surprised by this. CVS doesn't have stuff on its stores. Supermarkets don't have stuff on their shelves. And it's because our government continues to fail to prosecute the law, to catch the criminals, to enforce the law. And once again, when it comes to cyber attacks, we're now seeing it directly impact adults, elderly, and people like my brother who has a rare disease and needs his medication. So it's really time for the government to step up and start enforcing the law, putting bad actors away, whether in the physical world or here in the cyber world.
So I have to tell you, the rare disease front, we have a member of our family here, in my household who has a rare disease, and there's nothing worse than kind of having any part of that process, the medication, the treatment, any of it up in the air. There's just nothing worse than that, because all of a sudden, instead of focusing on, bills or work that you have to do, now you're just literally, kind of waiting by the phone or by your laptop, trying to figure out how you're going to get that medication where it needs to be. So this is so unacceptable. But what's the answer here? Because you run a business called NetChoice. You're in the cybersecurity world. What should United Healthcare do? What should they have done?
I mean, most likely United Healthcare is doing everything it can and should do. It is rare that a business who gets hacked is not doing enough to protect themselves. And look, frankly, they're going to do it for their own selfish interest. This is terrible for United Healthcare. They are losing millions, if not billions of dollars in share prices, the reputational harm. The Federal Trade Commission just opened an investigation on them for anti-competitive behavior, just coincidentally after this. And let's remember, United Healthcare at the end of the day is the victim here. They were hacked, just like CVS is the victim of all the people who engage in shoplifting. So a couple things need to be done. And one of the things is Congress needs to really begin holding this administration accountable. It continues to fail to enforce the law, whether on the border or in crime, and here through cyber attacks. And it goes to the government agencies as well. But as individuals, we ourselves need to protect ourselves. And there are a couple simple steps that we can take as well. Because guess what? These hacks are increasing. User fraud and American fraud cost us $10 billion last year. It's a new record high. So one of the first things we can do is make sure we have a completely unique password on our primary email account. Don't use that password anywhere else. Because if a bad actor gets your email address and your password to your main email account, they'll go out and send password resets from bank accounts and be able to sneak into your bank account. So that's a simple step that you can take. Second is use different passwords on different sites so that when a site does get hacked, when a password does get compromised, the harm is limited to only that one site for you. You don't have to worry about every single site, because if you use 12345 on every single website, that's just not going to end well. So those are two simple things that we can do ourselves to protect ourselves, while Congress and hopefully the executive branch, the Biden administration, get off their keister and start enforcing the laws and really taking down these criminal enterprises.
So can that be done? Playing devil's advocate here, is the reason why they're not taking down these criminal enterprises because they can't do it?
You know, one of my good friends, actually my co-professor at George Mason Law School, he used to work for the Department of Justice doing cybercrime. It's hard work. It is really hard work. You have to build a case. You have to file extradition papers usually, because the bad actors aren't necessarily always here. You have to import them. You have to prosecute them. It's hard work. But you know what? That's hard work. That's work that needs to be done. All work is hard. All prosecutions are hard. All criminal enforcements are hard. But if we don't do it, the problems will only get worse. And the resources are there. We just need an administration with the will to do the work, because we've provided the way. We just need them to provide the will.
So the forcing of this issue by these hackers, if it's met with a response that's commensurate with what they're doing, would we see a reduction in the hacking, or is this just a crime where, people who can do?
You will always have crimes of opportunity. But if there's no law enforcement, those opportunities increase. A simple example I see almost every single day, fare jumping. Fare jumping on the subway transit systems are just at levels nobody's seen before. It's gotten to the point where people just step over the turnstiles and nobody blinks an eye. The station managers don't blink an eye just because everybody does it. And so if you see somebody do that and go unprosecuted, you start asking yourself, well, why am I paying $5, $6, $7 to ride the train when I could just step over? So when there's no law enforcement, it encourages other people to behave badly. And we've learned this throughout our history. I mean, you've got the broken windows theory that worked when they cleaned up all of our inner cities by enforcing the small crimes. It helps prevent the bigger crimes. Here, you take down the big actors and simultaneously sends a message to the would-be criminals, hey, maybe you should find a new career path. And if we don't do any enforcement, it's only going to get worse, because it has only gotten worse.
Well, I think there's a big opportunity here, and that opportunity involves us literally stepping into a new arena of treating these guys like they're really criminals, like, acting as if we do have the high ground, pushing back on them having so much room within our spaces to hold people hostage. The reason there are so many of them is because enforcement is lax, and the more crackdowns there are, the better it would be for all of us.
Absolutely. Without law enforcement, there's no incentive to follow the laws. I mean, you've got people's moral compass, but at the end of the day, if somebody is teetering on that edge between good actions and bad actions, and there's no one there to help discourage them from the bad actions, we're just going to see more criminals, and that's going to cause more harm. I mean, the other statistic, and I kind of alluded to it, this is hitting people's paychecks. So consumer fraud, Americans have been defrauded over $10 billion last year alone. The prior year was $8.5 billion. These numbers have gone up by a quantum leap under the current administration. It used to be around maybe $500 million, maybe pushing $1 billion. But under the current administrations, Americans have lost $25 billion to fraud, and that's just the ones we know about. And it is due in part to the lack of enforcement simultaneously. I don't know about you, but my phone is virtually unusable due to all the spam phone calls. We've had a law in the book since 2000, the do not call list. And only recently has this problem completely gotten out of hand to the point where most of us don't even answer the phone anymore. And that's also from lack of enforcement. We have the laws, we have the rules, we just don't have anyone willing to enforce them. And so what I'm really hoping is that we start getting some accountability for our administration, which will lead to accountability for the criminals.
So I have to say I'm looking at when you talk about the phones, I think the issue with the phones is it's the same. I've actually told people I'm on the do not call list, and they just either hang up on you. I mean, I'm almost never removed. And I think their idea is as long as they can get, out of every 100 calls they make, if they can get one person to buy whatever it is that they're peddling, then they'll keep doing it. I think the other part of it is we have to stop. If someone calls you on the cell phone to solicit you, you can't buy anything from them. I don't care what they're selling. You can't buy it because that kind of behavior means they'll keep calling. They're calling all of us because some people are like, sure, I'll buy it. And then the next thing you know, everybody's on the list. I also hate the text ones. They text you from an email, which means you can't block them. And, of course, I guess the technology hasn't caught up to that trick yet. It's just, it's an annoyance for sure.
Yeah, but these are all crimes. If somebody calls you, then the government can actually do a reverse lookup and find out the origin of that call. And the same thing's true with messages, with emails, their IP addresses. But once again, it takes some elbow grease. And that is the role of law enforcement, is to enforce the law. Because otherwise, we're all in a real pickle.
Well, I think the story with United Healthcare, I hate to see them suffering under this, a data breach of any kind. Even if you're not currently a United Healthcare customer, chances are you were, right? That's why they're the largest health insurance company in the entire country. So what do you advise for people who are concerned that their data has been breached? What are the next steps we're supposed to take here?
Yeah. So once again, if your data has been breached, change your passwords, especially on your primary email account. I mentioned using multiple different passwords, two-factor authentication, where essentially, you put in your username and password, and then they send you a text message to verify that you are who you say you are. Activate it wherever you can. And the last thing that I would mention is go out and freeze your credit. And what I mean by that is you can actually put a freeze on your credit. And what the effect of that means, no one can take out a line of credit. Nobody can open a line of credit in your name under your Social Security number. Now, that means that nobody can take out a bank loan, nobody can open a credit card, and nobody can start a cell phone plan without you unfreezing your credit. And just like putting another lock on your house, it is a real pain in the tuchus if you want to, essentially start a new credit card or get a new car because you have to temporarily unfreeze it. But just like another lock on your door, it makes it much harder for the bad guys to get in. So that's what we can all do. And frankly, if the government's not going to do their job, we have to step up and do it for them by protecting ourselves.
Well, I'm absolutely hopeful that we're going to have some answers on this data breach for United Healthcare, that they're going to be able to prosecute whoever is behind it. And I also hope that we'll have some law enforcement dedicated to prosecuting these hackers, because it can be done. And I know if we just set our minds to it, we can make some strides in this area.
I agree. We sent a man to the moon. I'm sure we can go arrest some criminals.
Absolutely. I mean, least likely things that we'll do again. The man on the moon thing, might happen again. I know we sent a craft up there recently, so we're back in business. So good to have you here, Carl Sabo from NetChoice.
Thank you so much.
All right, have a great night. And you can go to NetChoice. His website is amazing, netchoice.org. You'll find out so much more about him. He's the vice president and general counsel there. You can also find out about Scalia Law School. It's juristmasters.gmu.edu if you want to find out more about that. We'll be right back. Stay right there.